looking at the stock of Uber continue to fall. I'm curious, before we even get into a conversation about autonomy, which, of course, either poses a great opportunity or threat to the future of Uber, whether you actually think that Uber and its ilk are good investments. Bob or Paul, did either of you guys buy into Uber?
Well, starting with me, I guess. Yes, I do. I think the way Uber is organized, their software package, how they let you know where they are and when they'll be there, the way the vehicles are placed, it's basically operating like an autonomous robotaxi fleet, except there's still drivers. And people who use Uber are extremely pleased with it. I think the future is bright, and they will be among the very first large robotaxi fleet owners, and I wouldn't look at the current stock performance at all. That's just a blip. Long term, I think the autonomous fleets are going to take over a major portion of transportation in the U.S.
So, Paul, are you in agreement with that? Do you believe that 10 years from now there will be a true sea change in how in mobility? I mean, that is the central thesis underlying effectively what Uber looks like. But also, I mean, we get into it. I know Bob doesn't like Tesla, but all of these companies to some degree.
Well, absolutely. There will be there's a revolution underway now in propulsion, in autonomy, and in community, which is ride-hailing. And I think these things will actually come to pass. But in the meantime, from an investment standpoint, I agree with Bob. You shouldn't necessarily look at the Uber stock price right now. But as an investor, a prospective investor, I'd want to know, how do you square the circle between retaining riders and cutting these massive losses? And, they really don't have an explanation for that right now, except, well, gee, we're going to wait for autonomy. Well, that's going to take a decade to pan out. So what is the solution to this in the near term for investors? I don't see it.
Right. Are you a believer, by the way, in terms of autonomy, that the Waymos, obviously Google, and which owns Waymo, and some of these others are clearly going to be the winners? Or is it possible, since it sounds like we're now 10 years away, even though I know Elon Musk says he's a year away, but if we're 10 years away, isn't it very possible that others emerge out of nowhere? Bob?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I can't believe that anybody still believes Elon Musk, and his autonomous technology is significantly behind Waymo, General Motors, and others. But
so you don't believe him?
No, because I think we've all been disappointed numerous times with claims of wait till next year, and frankly, next year never comes for Tesla. By the way, I like Tesla. I love the cars. I think Elon's a great guy. I just think the business is lousy. Having said that, yes, it's possible that others will emerge. But the essential thing to remember is whether it's 10 years, 15 years, maybe 20 years, the big winners in the future are going to be the owners of the large autonomous transportation fleets. And the automotive manufacturers, when that time comes, and as I say, it could be 25 or 30 years away, but I think Paul and I agree it is definitely coming to where the vehicles, the autonomous vehicles, will all be owned by the big transportation fleets, and the car companies will be mass providers, orders of 200,000, 250,000 at a time, to the transportation fleets. That makes it a lot like the cell phone business, where the manufacturers aren't capturing much of the value, and the value is captured in the provision of services.
Let me ask you this, and Paul, weigh in on this as well, though. Is it not possible that you see all the car manufacturers start their own fleets, right? That's one possibility. The other possibility, and something that Dara has talked about at Uber, is that effectively, an Uber runs the system, if you will, and then there are the car manufacturers, and in between are almost like REIT-like structures, effectively investment-like structures that make it capital light, effectively, for an Uber, that effectively own the fleets. Is that a possibility in terms of how you see this all play itself out?
I think
all of this is possible, honestly. I mean, the truth is none of us really know right now. The one thing we do know is that this disruption is already happening. For example, a decade ago, if you were a resident of Los Angeles, you would have no choice really but to be a two-car family, right? At least 2 cars. Now I know people in LA who get by with 1 car just fine. They use 1 car and the other, the spouse uses an Uber for his or her needs during the day, et cetera, et cetera. So this is already starting to happen in an incremental basis, and it's going to unfold. But really the question is just how fast. And again, Uber and Lyft need to figure out how to retain drivers and reduce losses, or give the investment community some indication that they know how to do that.
Could you see a car manufacturer buying one of them?
Well, General Motors owns a good percentage of Lyft.
Right.
And, you know, your question, one of the reasons why General Motors is abandoning unprofitable businesses is they're building an enormous cash hoard because they know it's going to take a monumental amount of cash to own a fleet of hundreds of thousands or millions of cars. It's normally, you know, they sell them and cash comes in. If you have your own fleet, the cash comes in gradually as people make use of the service. So, yeah, General Motors and others do plan to be a player, whether GM is going to be a player through Lyft or whether it'll be their percentage of Lyft plus a wholly owned GM subsidiary. But, yeah, people are going to try that. But the essential thing to know is the value of transportation, the monetary value, will be captured by the fleets and no longer in the sale of the automobile to individual customers.
Hey, Bob, you do realize the irony in saying that GM is getting rid of its unprofitable businesses and then buying up a big stake in another unprofitable business.
Well, but that's all. General Motors is getting rid of conventional unprofitable businesses that have proven to be unprofitable for decades, like Europe. And they're making a long-term investment in what they see as the transportation future, which is the on-demand fleets. So I think it's a smart move. And besides, if you want to look at how can anybody invest in Uber, they're horrors, they're not profitable. Well, how about Amazon? How long did it take them?
Amazon lost $6 million before its IPO. Uber lost $8 billion.
Okay. But the point is, a lot of times these high-tech startups lose a lot of money initially. And if you want to once again point at Tesla, the profitability record hasn't been stellar either, even though it's not a high-tech company. It's just an automobile company that uses batteries.